That's good. Going. The next slide, please. Thank you all for joining. We are going to continue to give it about a minute, but while people are joining us today, thank you for coming and joining us. Would you please, in the chat, respond to this question? What was your first W-2 job? So we look forward to your including that in the chat for us. And we are going to be using that information a little bit later in the session. So wanted you to go ahead and have a chance to answer that question now. Next slide. Thank you again. This is Luis Chavez with the Career Ladders Project. It gives me great pleasure to welcome you to the third in the series of Counselor Conversations, Strengthening Our Practice with Equity in Mind. Today's title of our session is Career Education and Equity, Making the Most of Career Education Opportunities for Students of Color. And again, we will be having this session from now till 1:30. We hope that you enjoy it. It'll be that much more richer if you engage with us through the chat and asking questions. You'll be getting some guidance over chat as well for links and questions and how to phrase your questions or how to give your questions, and also some direction about a short breakout session that we'll be having. So thank you again for joining. Next slide, please. We start with our land acknowledgement as we have in the past. We, CACN, begin this webinar by acknowledging our presence on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territories of Indigenous people throughout the state of California. We pay respects to the ancestors, elders, and our relations past, present, and emerging from the lands from where we all gather today. We encourage everyone joining us to continue to learn about the traditional and land caretakers where your college or your institution is located, and we all will work to be in good relations with them. This was provided by the UCLA American Indian Studies Center. Thanks to them. Next slide, please. I am your moderator for today. My role is to introduce the team that has been working behind the scenes so hard to put all these sessions together, and we'll talk about that in a little bit with this next slide. But right now I wanted to introduce the planning team that has put in so much effort into these sessions. Dr. Robert Howdegi, retired counselor from, actually he's still working at Fullerton College, but he's also a consultant to the Career Ladders Project. Heather Oshiro, counseling faculty at Chabot. Lupe Danos, counseling faculty at Valley College, Diablo Valley College. Dr. Patricia Avila, counseling faculty at Riverside College. Derek Majors, who is our facilitator for today from LA Trade Tech College, and Christina Sandoval, program associate with the Career Ladders Project, and not pictured here, Valeria Torres, program coordinator with Career Ladders Project. Thank you all for your great work in pulling all of this together. Next slide, please. This is a slide to give a little bit of information about the purpose. And as you can see on the left-hand side, we have the series with the titles of the various work sessions and roundtables that we're having. We're on the third one now, but really these are really posed to give opportunity for everyone involved and participating to engage with each other, to make connections, which is our hope from the beginning, that we would find ways to use these roundtables as a way for practitioner to practitioner engaged conversation and learn from each other with a very deep sense of student-centered conversation, and at the same time to share strategies, not do formal presentations where you get overloaded by PowerPoint, but we really want to overload the heart and the mind with the practices that make the difference for students. So sharing practices between practitioners is the heart and the goal. We do this in partnership and in community. I know some of you may have seen the tagline with the CACN as being the power of network. What it really means outside of a slogan, it really means the power of familia, if you will, the power of practice, the power of individuals sharing what they know works for them and then sharing that with each other. So that really is getting to the level of the purpose of these roundtables, is to serve you in your role as you're serving your students and your communities. So with that said, I'd like to go to the next slide and introduce our wonderful facilitator for today, Derek Majors, counseling faculty from LA Trade Tech. As I mentioned, he's going to introduce the session for today and then get us started. Thank you, Derek. Please take it away.
Thank you, Luis. Well, happy Friday, everyone. At our last roundtable discussion, I talked about the spoon to stir up the ingredients for useful discussion. Now, as you see here, I've brought my spoon. Well, today, we're going to discuss how providing career education options and pathways for our students points them in a prosperous direction. So I'm asking you to take out your spoons today to continue stirring the ingredients of good CE counseling. If there is something that you'd like to add to the discussion, as already been said, please put it in the chat. Your thoughts and ideas continue our good counseling sauce. Next slide. I'd like to welcome and introduce today's guest, our panel. We have first Jess Guerra, who's the department chair of and instructor for advanced manufacturing and transportation at Los Angeles Trade Tech College. We have Camille Santana, who's counseling faculty, workforce and economic development at Los Medanos College. We have David Turcotte, the guided pathways CTE counselor at Compton College, and a student, Kent Gallegos from Los Angeles Trade Technical College. Welcome, everyone. Next slide. So today, we're not going to dwell on it too much here, but these are today's questions that we're going to ask our panelists, just kind of warming it up, right? The first question is, how are career ed students served on your campus? And then the second one is, many campuses are supported by adjunct and general counselors as directed are dedicated CTE counselors. Now, let me stop right there. Some of us will say CTE, which is career technical education. We're trying to move away from that. So just know that sometimes we'll say CTE and sometimes we'll say career ed, if you would. And what does that mean to be a CTE counselor? Next slide. Now we have a wonderful short video of a young man who took advantage of the CE programs, and go for it.
My name is Adrian Aguilar. I attended Cerritos College, and today I am a machinist/programmer. When I was younger, I thought there would be no way for me to attend college, but it turned out to be totally the opposite. What I'm proud of at my workplace is it gives me a name, it gives me a title. I take pride in being the backbone of the United States economy. I'm serving the country in my own way. I feel like that's my contribution to being me, being an immigrant and living in the United States. So if you think community college is not for you, think again. After community college, I more than doubled my salary.
Thank you. That is an awesome video. Very short, but very powerful. Don't you agree? All right, so now we're going to go into our 7-minute breakout session. And what we want to do is keep it really short. We want you to introduce yourself by your first W-2 job. And then secondly, what do you wonder about counseling Black and Brown students in career education programs and areas of interest? Now, I'm going to model this for you. This, which I know maybe it's hard to see, but I hope you kind of see it, is my first paycheck stub when I worked in 1984 at the Los Angeles Olympics, right? I got a whole $63.64. But because I was such a good young man at the time, I got a ticket to actually go in and watch the Olympics.
Wow.
And that was so fun. Oh, wow. And what do I wonder? I wonder, what do we need to do to remove the stigma from career education programs and area of interest at both colleges and at the high schools? You see, very quick, of course, you guys are probably not ready with your displays, but real in and out so we can just get to know each other. Now we'll go to the breakout sessions.
Sorry, if you can give me a couple more minutes, I'm just creating a random breakout for everyone, making sure there's even breakout between everyone.
Thank you very much. So I will have Camille. Camille, would you tell me what your first job was, your W-2, please?
I used to work at the Fullerton Public Library, and I was in the reference area, and I stacked books and cleaned magazines, but it was great. I could study and just sit there. It was
That's awesome.
I had a lot of fun.
Awesome. Okay. And
Thank
Lupe.
you so much. Oh, sorry, go ahead. I'm ready when you are.
Okay. I'll just, because I put it out there. Lupe, do you mind coming on and telling us what your first W-2 job was?
I was a sales clerk for J.C. Penney's in the yardage department. You know,
Thank
they
you.
used to sell fabric.
Thank you very much. All right. As you see, they're answering the first question and not the second one. But again, what we want you to do is answer the first question, introduce yourself, the W-2, and then what do you wonder? Okay. Now we'll go to the breakout sessions. All right, so as we start to return, hopefully everyone got to share out. Make sure everyone has come back. Give it a few seconds. All right, so I'm just going to ahead and move forward. All right. Again, in the chat, please share your reactions to the questions, right? The more questions that we have, the more comments, the more interesting fun facts, the more rounded we become. You remember what I was telling you, continue to stir, continue to stir. All right, so in the chat, you can ask questions. For example, Jess Guerra is going to speak, or is going to speak to one of the first questions. And when he speaks, he may say something that really you want to hear more information about. In the chat, you may say, Jess Guerra, how do you X, Y, and Z, right? So definitely pose the questions directly at the panelists, and we'll hopefully get a chance to have those people speak and answer those questions. Next slide. So our first question is, how are career ed students served on your campus? And the first person that we're going to have to speak is Jess. Jess, would you answer the question? How are career ed students served on your campus?
Thanks, Eric. So in our campus, in fall of 2014, we decided to launch a whole pathway strategy, right? Which we now call pathways. We also call them, or we're transitioning to calling them schools of, like for instance, in my area is the School of Advanced Transportation and Manufacturing, ATM, the ATM with no money. Anyway, so we took that approach back in 2014. And one of the things that we wanted to do was not only bring in, student support and strategies that we were testing out to try to support our students and increase student success, but we started out by bringing all of the resources to the students as opposed to sending them across campus. So one of the cornerstones, or the corner piece of this whole pathway approach, is our counselor. We had a counselor that was assigned to our pathway, and not only was he assigned to our pathway, but he actually moved in and started working out of our building. So we took our normal department office, we converted that thing into our pathway office, and in there we had the counselor, the department chair, the pathway navigator, the dean. We started bringing financial aid once a week and bringing all of these services together. So the way that our CTE or career ed students are served on our campus is when they identify themselves with a particular pathway. For instance, if they identify as an ATM student that's coming to one of our programs, we do a quick onboarding. It's an optional onboarding, but we call it the Pathway Ready. 2 weeks prior to the beginning of the semester, they get to meet the pathway team, some of the faculty. They get to have everything that we would like a student to have before day one. We follow that up with welcome events on the first day, so they can get to know the counselor. They can get to know some of the other support staff in the pathway, put a face to the name, and start establishing a rapport. And then we follow that up finally by classroom visits with the counselor and our pathway navigator, where they even come up with simplified ed plans.
Thank you for that answer. I appreciate that, Jess. And Camille, I would like to ask the same question of you. How are career ed students served on your campus?
So I work at Los Medanos College. It's in Pittsburgh, California. It's about minutes northeast of Oakland, just to give folks some context. We have about 38% of our students enrolled in CTE programs across the campus, and 79.8% of our students are first generation, and 76% of our students are students of color. So I am our workforce development counselor. I work within the counseling department, so I'm housed in a counseling department, counseling center. We also have a K-12 pathways counselor that focuses on CTE outreach within the high schools. And we also have an adjunct counselor that focuses on alternative sites. So working with detention centers, court schools, and alternative sites. We focus a lot on CTE outreach because I think a lot of our K-12 experiences for students is that they don't hear a lot about CTE. There's been a consistent disinvestment with technical trades and voc tech classes in high schools, and we're starting to see that there's a lack of interest with students coming into college. They have no awareness around what great jobs and family sustaining wage jobs there are in careers within career education fields. So we do a lot of outreach, and we do it out in the community. We do a lot of overview of a lot of our CTE programs within our high schools, within community-based organizations, and developing relationships with CBOs for those referrals. We also do something called a Career Focus Friday. So we split up all of the different sectors within career education. We do one Friday is going to focus on industrial trades. So we have welding, auto, electrical, instrumentation, process technology. One Friday is going to focus on health and safety. We look at LVN and our RN programs. We look at emergency medical services, and we also look at administration of justice in our fire tech program. Then we have another Friday that focuses on arts and humanities, looking at graphic arts, recording arts, journalism, and then we have a STEM Friday also. But we invite high schools around our surrounding area to come, and so we see probably about 150 to 200 students for each of those Fridays, and they're different students. So the students get to sign up with their high schools. So the high school counselors really promote this, and they get this field trip going. So they bus in all the students. They get to hear from all of the different departments, from faculty directly. They get to go to their different labs and see what the equipment they would be working on. And so that's really a time where students, their eyes open up in terms of, wow, this could be a career. I can work with my hands and create something from start to finish, or I can fix something, or I could serve as a nurse or be a firefighter. But a lot of our industrial trades, I think those are the ones that students don't hear a lot about. So for example, at our campus, we have something called electrical instrumentation that prepares folks to work in refineries, in biofuel, in water treatment. So, and it's something that folks don't, you don't hear it when you're in elementary school or middle school or high school about what does that mean? But those jobs lead to careers that are 100,000 a year that folks are making yearly, plus overtime. So really trying to make career education something tangible, something real that folks can connect with. And then also making it sexy. Like when we talk about a process technician, folks are like, what is that? It's not a doctor, it's not a nurse, and trying to break it down about what do you do daily to create fresh water for folks to drink. And so like bringing that reality picture of what it's like in that certain career, that's something we do a lot about. So I think, there's a marketing and outreach that I think is critical. We can have amazing CTE programs, career education programs, which we do and we're proud of. But if we don't have the outreach and that buy-in from our folks coming in, whether it's straight from the high schools or it's folks returning. So a lot of times we'll have folks returning to school. So they've been away for 10 years. They never thought college was going to be for them. And they're stuck in a low wage job. And they're coming back and they're like, what else can I do? So they're coming back for short-term certificates or an associate's degree that leads straight into a career. So it's a great field to be in. I think that if folks want to do this work, you really have to think about, you're not just going to be a counselor in the office waiting for students to come to you. I think that's exactly right with what Jess said about integrating those student services and going to where the students are. That's important within the campus and also outside of the campus. Our students are in the community. The community is our campus. So folks need to kind of break down that idea that, I'm a counselor in the office, like that doesn't work like that. And now we're counselors at home. But like, how can we use, in terms of being in COVID land, doing those virtual workshops and doing that Career Focus Friday showcase of all of our CTE programs, how can that convert onto virtual world? So yeah, I'd say that outreach and marketing is super key. And especially in our K-12 systems in our high schools, we have concurrent enrollment and articulated courses within all of our intro CTE courses. Another thing that we do also that I kind of lead is I target our entry-level CTE courses that we know are kind of challenging for students. So that's kind of our electrical instrumentation, that first semester class they take, or our welding first semester class. Those can be kind of challenging classes. So I make sure that I check in with those students and that faculty and that I'm doing calls to the students. How are we doing? What kind of supports are needed? How is the class going? But that first semester, I think, touching base and having it be an intrusive counseling thing, and I'm not waiting for them to come. So I may go to their classes and say hello via Zoom and let them know I'm gonna be following up with them to schedule some appointments. That helps them to get their foot in the door and that they're not just a number in the room. I think that's very critical. And this is stuff that isn't told to me by my supervisors. Like I look at what is needed and I have the flexibility of I have counseling time and I have coordination time. So it's kind of a combination of that. So that's kind of like infrastructure wise, but I look at what do I need to do to serve students better? And is it within my capacity to do it? And I need to do it. So that's, I think, a critical part of equity is that equity doesn't start top down, it starts ground up. So it's important to think about what power do you have right now that you can shift so you can serve our Black and Brown students better. And I know that we all have that in our hearts and our spirit. That's why you're in this work. And I just want to acknowledge that you have power now to shift things. So I just want to say that. So thanks.
Thank you for that. Appreciate it. And David, would you comment on the question, how are career ed students served on your campus?
Wow, how do you follow that up? Thank you guys. Before I get started, I just want to give Camille and the other presenters, the panelists, some kudos. The question is, how are career students served? And I'm reading the questions in the chat. And, I think first and foremost, students are served in the classroom, right? career education is about, and I'm not even a big fan of the word, I don't know that we should even be segregating these types of program offerings. I remember a time when we used to just call it education. But I do want to add that, part of this in serving our students, especially with technical programs, is knowing the language, right? So if you have an automotive program on campus, go to those classrooms, look at the equipment they're using, learn what it's called. Sometimes we, as general counselors or as, specific area counselors, we oftentimes just know that's those people over there. That's that building. Go send them to Derek because Derek knows how to talk to them. But I think that's part of it. The first way is how we serve career ed students is learning the language. Like, get in on the ground level with your students, understand what they're learning. If you don't know what machine tool technology is, or what the different types of codes are with CNC, ask, learn that stuff. That's important. Now at Compton College, we are 97% students of color. And how do we serve our students at Compton? Well, part of it is we've gone through an institutional shift for guided pathways. And so we have rebranded our college essentially into 5 specific divisions, including business and industrial studies, which essentially incorporates that. Now, how we've done that, we've done something unique at Compton, which I'm very proud about. It's also caused me a few sleepless nights, but we've actually put in charge of our success team. So we've created success teams, which involve members and constituents all throughout campus. So for my success team, we have outreach specialists. We actually have hired advisors, which is a hot topic if you've been following case management at the community college level. But we've gone that route. We have campus security. We have special programs, our student resource center, which is disabilities. We have a job placement specialist. And these teams are, and deans, chairs, faculty, these teams are led by our counselors. So our counselors are essentially in charge of creating these success teams and the initiatives that come out of them. So some of the things that we've done at Compton is we've instituted an early alert system for our students, right? Which involves onboarding our faculty, getting them trained, use that, having advisors and counselors following up proactively, using data, which Derek and everyone has heard me preach a million times, using data effectively to basically create predictive analytics. So we can kind of now see where our high, medium, low risk students are and how to address them. So we out through these success teams, we've created, so many initiatives. We have funding for this, and really, our hope as we continue to develop this will be highly impactful, like my colleagues have stated, to be proactive in our counseling versus reactive. And in a community college setting, in terms of counseling, traditionally, it's, ed planning, right? We follow up, we have appointments, just bombarded with students constantly. We're trying to change that narrative at Compton. We're really trying to meet students where they are through a collaborative effort. So I'm proud of that. It is a work in progress, but those are some of the things I can say we're doing to serve our CE students.
Thank you very much, David. I really do appreciate that. So we have some questions in the chat. Heather, would you come on and maybe ask a question of any one of our panelists?
Yeah, so there was a question earlier for Camille. How do you differentiate career education pathways versus the tracking mentality that maybe we often see in schools and in colleges?
I had a recent conversation with our outreach department, because our outreach department definitely focused very much on transfer students and that pathway. So when they're in the high schools, they always emphasize that. And we saw a few years back, I don't know, I would say, like at the beginning of strong workforce funding, I don't know, maybe it was like 4 or 5 years ago, that they weren't getting the word out about CTE because they didn't know how to talk about it. And they were also, it turns out, they were afraid of tracking students. So they felt like if I tell them about CTE, then I'm saying they can only go up to this level of education and I'm going to limit them. And then I was like, let's like step back here. So like all the jobs out there, they don't all require a 4-year degree. And career tech programs lead to careers that are life sustaining and family sustaining. We're talking about $30 to $50 an hour if you end up going into like a pre-apprenticeship or trades. With any of the industrial tech, CNC, machining, you're looking at close to $100,000. Like a lot of our students who are getting 4-year degrees in social services, bachelor's, which include myself, I was not able to make over like $25 an hour when I first got out and with a bachelor's. And so we have a lot of folks that go that route of transferring, getting a bachelor's, and then you see someone with a business degree working retail or at a restaurant. And those are the folks often I see them coming back and they're just kind of like, I need to start something new, you know, and the career education programs often speak to those students very much. And they often express regret that they didn't understand what it was and that they were kind of misinformed or not told the whole story. So I think a lot of high schools, the narrative is, you know, 4-year college and that's it, but we need to broaden it to some kind of training after high school. It doesn't have to be 4-year. If you are somebody that's in high school and unmotivated and turned off by education, and you envision college is going to be the same way, very theoretical and behind the lecture and kind of just watching a lecture, that's not what our programs are. They're hands-on. It's connected with industry. You have folks that have been working in the fields in their trades and developing expertise over many years and are coming back to teach students hands-on building engines or welding, all the different types of welding. So it's a very different experience. And I think it's important to give students the complete picture so they can make an informed choice. I think it's a disservice to students to assume that 4 years is the only route. And I think that's why we're seeing with all the baby boomers retiring and all of these career tech middle skills jobs that require a certificate or 2 years, there's so many jobs available. And so there's a lack of awareness and a lack of interest, I think, coming straight out of high school. So I think it's important for all counselors, whether you focus on career education or not, you need to be aware of it because these are jobs that can allow people to get out of poverty and be in the middle class. Like you can't deny that that is the heart of equity. Can you support your student to get in a well-paying, benefited job that's going to sustain themselves and their future folks if they decide to have kids or whatever? That's important. So you have to look at everything. So I encourage folks to open their eyes and look through your catalog and read about every single program. And as a counselor for CTE, knowing about the industry specifics, I think somebody mentioned that in the chat, it's required for all the career education programs to have industry advisory boards. That is fascinating. Get a hold of the notes and the talking points for that and learn about what is actually going on in industry right now. Like being able to provide that information for students. Our first-gen students, they don't get that career counseling and mentoring from their families. You know, like when we have folks coming from high socioeconomic statuses, they're getting that mentoring and career coaching from birth. So when we have immigrants and first-generation folks, which was myself too, you don't get that. So that's the role that we play as counselors. We're a mentor, we're a career coach, and it's opening and broadening what the perspective is. So that's just something you can do on Monday. Start to think about it that way. And I know a lot of people already see it that way because you are coming from that same experience of maybe being inspired by somebody in the community or a teacher or a counselor that played that role and stepped up for that role. But it's vital to know that information. Thank you. Thank you very much. Any other questions in the chat, Heather, that we can answer in the next 30 seconds?
There was a really specific one, and I kind of feel like this might have been for David, but maybe for anybody. So if you've hired advisors, then are you as a counselor not writing ed plans, and are you fully focusing on career counseling / development?
That's a great question. So no, we are the counselors, as our roles have been defined, are still doing education plans. And the advisors at our college are handling our early alert. So when students are falling behind, the counselors, like within the minute, are calling these students based on the faculty input to find out where they are and then making referrals. But I do want to say this, I came from New York City in CUNY and working in ASAP and other programs. And, I feel like when I came to California, I got to be careful here. A lot of the emphasis on counseling is on education plans, right? And I don't recall, maybe you guys did, taking like 5 or 6 education plan courses in grad school, right? So I do feel like at times we have an over-reliance on education planning as the process in terms of defining counseling. So, and I know there's a lot of discussion about that, and I don't want to introduce that, but I really like having the advisors at Compton College, I'll be honest. I mean, they provide an invaluable service. They give kudos to students. They follow up when they're doing well, not just when they're doing bad, which is important from an equity mindset and lens. We don't always want to be hammering our students about what they're doing wrong. So we have a really wonderful system. The advisors are a big part of that. They also help co-lead our success teams at Compton College. So they're also coming up with initiatives and things that are student-centered for services and programs to provide. So again, I think advisors is kind of this big scary word out there. As for Compton, no, the counselors are still definitely doing the education planning, but the advisors really supplement that. And they've been a huge addition, in my opinion, to the college.
Thank you very much, David. Appreciate it. Let's move to the second question. All right. So many campuses are supported by general and adjunct and counselors, as well as dedicated CE, aka CTE counselors. What does it mean to be a CE counselor? And what we want to do is, again, keep stirring. There's a lot of questions in the chat, a lot of comments in the chat. Thank you for that. We really do appreciate it. Please keep stirring. And I'm going to start with David. Since you just kicked it back, I'm going to kick it back to you.
All right, that's what's up. So for me, what does it mean to be a CE counselor? I'm going to be honest. I think for me, it's about relationships with my students. 100%. It is. And I will say it's just relationship management almost. It's relationship building. You know, I'm very tight with my faculty in career ed at Compton. I have to be. We have outreach, we have concurrent enrollment we're developing. You have to be able to play nice in the sandbox to be an effective career education counselor. I think also you have to get to know your students, like really get to know them. Like for me, sometimes I don't get into an ed plan until maybe even our third appointment, depending on where we are in the semester, right? So, you know, if it's just talking about the Lakers, the Dodgers, if they want to share their feelings about education, I get parents on the phone, especially now in COVID. If I see a mom or a sister walk by, I'm like, who is that? Like, get them over here, right? Because those relationships are critical. And I can tell you honestly that sometimes the success of our students at Compton, they don't come from me. I can't take the credit for that in terms of them. It's the family members, it's their friends, it's the faculty members. All the technical pedagogy, I feel, and we'll get into that, and we could spend weeks on that, grad school on that, is really, really important. But I think it's all remiss, especially when you're dealing with students of color. They're dealing with institutional racism. I'm sorry, it's there, it exists. They're dealing with DACA. I had a student last week whose father was abducted by ICE, and can you imagine? You know, sole family provider. You know, COVID-19, you have to be able to get to know your students as if they're family. And that's something in career education, that is so important. And that carries to your faculty, it carries to your high schools. That kind of passion and persistence and dedication, it has to be there. If you want to change these stigmas, you've got to put the time in. If you want to know more about CE and what we're doing in these classrooms, you got to spend some time and go down there and make those relationships, ask questions, take a class. But really the most important thing I can't impress for me to be a CE counselor, and I have the best job ever, you guys. I absolutely love what I do. If you can't tell, maybe I don't know, maybe I'm not articulating myself well, but it's about those relationships. You have to love your students. You cannot treat them like an ed plan. You can't rush them out the door. Our students are different. And at Compton, you know, I'm proud to say that we do that. We really spend the time, we build those relationships, and you know, it's just a great place to be.
Thank you for that, David. I really do appreciate it. Jess, if you would come on and answer the question from your perspective, as you know, all the roles and hats that you wear. This should be really interesting, folks.
Sure. I mean, I think, you know, being a CE counselor, having worked with so many great counselors at our college, two things come to mind. The first thing is that, you know, kind of in the lines of what David was talking about, that, you know, you want to come off and students need to feel that the counselors really see this career education and as equal to liberal arts, that there is no, you know, difference in or higher category or a higher value placed on, let's say, white collar work versus blue collar, that they feel that they're talking to someone who's valuing their educational choices, and also that can help them understand that it's not either or. It could be both. You know, they can go into a great CTE program or CE program, and then they can transfer and they can do other things. But the other key that I really think is important is I think being a CE counselor also puts a bigger focus on having the counselor not just have the knowledge and background from, you know, from the program mapping aspect to say, okay, you take this class, this fills this requirement, this fills for that, but to really know those industries. You know, an example that always comes to mind for me is collision repair, right? We have collision repair on our campus. And if you think about collision repair and you think about a student that's taking collision repair, you're probably thinking someone that wants to, paint vehicles, repair collision damage. But do people ever really think that a collision repair student can also go out and get a job with Allstate as a, you know, damage estimator? Right? If you know those differences, if you know what are the career options, then you'll be able to advise them better. Maybe not even the student might not even know that's an option. And if that is something the student wants to do, then now you can recommend maybe taking some courses that can enhance their computational skills that can help them go towards those goals. So I love the piece about learning the language. I think that's powerful. And I think that, you know, having those relationships are important. But, you know, when we have our advisory committee meetings, we have our counselor present. They get to learn who are these companies that are hiring our students. What are the requirements? You know, what is the culture? You know, and even within similar industries, just between if I point at the heavy equipment programs that we have, students that go into trucking and students that go into transit or bus repair, there's a little bit of a different culture in those two industries. So it really helps to have a counselor that truly understands not only the programs from a programmatic standpoint, but also the industry, so that they can really motivate and just empower our students to do the very best that they can with their educational goals.
Thank you very much for that, Jess. I appreciate it. So I have a question for any of the three of you. How do we combat? Well, let me back up just a second. We have graduate students on our roundtable discussion right now, and if you had to eliminate the potential arrogance that those grad students may have coming into any counseling role, what one or two things would you say to them to be careful of the stigma that we call CE programs? Any one of you?
I'll start. I think the stigma, you know, in my opinion, I've said it before, I really don't feel like we should always be disaggregating career education versus transfer pathways. And I put in the chat, you know, there's always pathways to level up your education from where a welding program or an HVAC program into a bachelor's or beyond. It's just a lot of it. Do you have, as a practitioner, do you have the knowledge base or the foundation to ask yourself, is there a pathway, right? And if there is, what would it look like? And as Jess was saying, you know, being in the conversations with advisories, learning the industries in which they're working, understanding the pathways for upward mobility for your students, you can have those conversations. I think that's really important. I think one other thing too, when you're working with the high schools, find out who your people are. I'm just going to say that, not everyone is going to always agree with having you come into the main lecture in the hall and talking to all their 4.0 students who they want to go to Harvard. I mean, this is just the reality. I'm sure Derek and Camille can attest to that. But find your people. I mean, if you connect with a counselor and they have, a group of students that maybe you feel like, well, we should be attacking more of these students, work with what you have, especially coming into these programs. Relationship building, again, is so important for CE. And so sometimes, we look at the sky and see all these stars, but maybe we should just focus on one solar system for now and then expand our offerings. So I think that's really, really important for grad students coming in to help break that stigma. It's not so much we're going to break down these doors, but to expand, the offerings that we have and those relationships that you have. And I'll say this last thing is salary. Talk to students about salary. Don't be afraid to get into Transparent California. And I mean, if you don't know what that is, it's a lot of fun. You can look up every public employee across the state. But if I were at Trade Tech and knowing that they have a relationship with DWP, man, wait till you see those DWP salaries. You guys, I mean, that's transformative for students, right? That really helps them address their why, if that's a way that you can connect to them. So I would say, relationship build, constantly put the message out there, don't burn bridges, and then really, again, find what motivates your students and use those resources well to your advantage.
Thank you for that, David. I really appreciate it. Camille, come on, please. I got a question for you. All right. So I want you to expand on potential counselor arrogance at the grad school level.
Oh my God, you are never done learning. I learn new stuff all the time. I'm about to be tenured. Thank God. Thank you. So I'm at my last semester of review. So it's been 3 years and now I'm entering my 4th year. I just had my evaluation with my supervisor yesterday. I learn new things every time. If you're at a place where you're not learning new things, you are missing things. And I think with career education too, these are the programs where you see new programs coming out. So I think for the standard kind of transfer programs or majors, there's not a lot of new programs coming out often, but career education is driven by industry. And if there is a need in industry with COVID, there are changes happening. Logistics is crazy right now, So I know there's logistics programs starting to come up. We just started drone technology and we started a pre-apprenticeship construction because there's huge boom in construction in the Bay Area. But again, not enough housing that's affordable. Okay, so just side note. But the industry meets with community colleges, there's that relationship. And so if there's a need in the community and there's a lack of training, that's what these certificate programs can meet that need. So you're constantly learning. I'm always learning new classes that are coming through, new programs that are coming through. So you really have to be humble about that. And you're always going to be a student, and that's okay. If you get to a point where you're not learning anything, you're dead. Like, you're not going to be a great counselor. You're not going to be an excellent counselor. You always got to be learning. And our students are learning. The access to Google and what you can find in terms of salaries and workforce trends and what's the 20 top jobs, the 2020 and 2030 or whatever, that's in the internet right now, and you may be tired when you get out from your 8 hours of working with students. You don't want to do it when you get off of that day, but students are doing that. They're searching that stuff. And when we look at those predatory for-profit colleges, and I'm not going to name names, but for-profit colleges that are blasting students on social media and through the internet and flyers, students are signing up for these tech colleges and they're getting ripped off. We see that a lot. I talk to students all the time in high schools, and I tell my fellow counselors too, like, folks our communities are being targeted by these for-profit career tech programs. And we have the same program, if not better, but it's important that as community colleges, we know what those programs are and we're able to blast that out and have that marketed and outreach. So folks aren't making that choice of a $30,000 program where they could have done an LVM program at LMC for $8,000, So that's another thing I want to put out there too, is the students will do their own research. They'll find stuff and they'll bring it to you, and that's okay. And don't be afraid to say, I don't know, let's look, and oftentimes in my counseling appointments, and I think a lot of us already do this, I don't know, let's check it out, let's look. The career centers on the different college campuses are great too. So if you want to know, like, what can I do with a major in, that's a great website, by the way. I'll put that in the resource bundle that you all will get. But that's a good one, but just get lost in it. You may have a student and they're coming in and talking about athletic training. You have no idea where you can get a certificate for that, or can you get a bachelor's, or what's the career pathway. That's a point for you to learn. That's okay. Start researching it. Say, hey, you know what? Let's see what we can learn now. Let's have you come back and I'm gonna do a little more research and we'll see what we can go next for next steps. But don't be afraid to not know, and continue to learn. And then for the nuances about CTE, it takes time to learn. Like, one of my colleagues, she said it took her until her 5th year working at LMC to really feel like she started to know what she was doing. Like, it takes time, and that's okay. And especially if you're working at different colleges and you end up at a different college, you got to learn a whole new kind of system and build those relationships. It takes time. So be compassionate with yourself, be patient, and then don't be too hard on yourself if you don't know it. That's just a message to, hey, what can I do to learn more? And then around the CTE, learning the nuances, your department chairs and your faculty within the CTE departments are going to be amazing partners for you. And so I definitely support everything that Jess and David has said around that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Derek,
Thank you very much.
Derek, real quick, I just want to say that's like a funny question, to say about the arrogance of grad students. I want to tell all the grad students, you guys are amazing. Like, you guys are learning, you're coming in at a really interesting time. And so, take all this stuff that you're learning in school and really don't be afraid to, share out your ideas and things. I mean, play nice in the sandbox, but your expertise and I just want to let you know that I value all of the grad students and the new counselors, the adjuncts, the part-timers. Don't let Derek tell you you're arrogant. You're awesome and amazing, so just bring that energy to your campuses and you're going to be great. You're going to be fine. You're going to have a wonderful career.
Here. Go ahead, Jess, real quick.
Yeah, and just really quick, from someone who's not a counselor, I want to let you guys know that we really, really appreciate the work that you guys do. I mean, it makes a world of difference. And I'll echo the comment that Camille made. Get on there, establish relationships with the faculty. We've taken 3 counselors on our campus on field trips with us when we visited, places out in industry. I mean, it's amazing the things that you'll pick up. So you want to know how to, get more familiar with your career education programs. Start with those relationships. Go out there, make the time to, visit, these companies when take advantage of the field trips, and it's all going to come together. It's kind of like when we go to school and we tell our students the same thing when they leave our programs, right? We say, listen, just go with it. The pieces are going to start coming together, and you're going to pick a lot of pieces up along the way. And before you know it, you're going to be making a huge difference in people's lives.
Thank you. The panelists, thank you very much. That was really awesome. All right, so we'll move into our student now. As I think about this young man, I counseled him myself. And we're going to have a little bit of a talk. But before we even get into that, you get every now and then you get a perfect student that kind of does exactly what the plan is and listens and inquires and is curious, and then they make it happen. Well, this young man, and I call him a man now, I met him when he was a boy. He's pretty awesome. So I want to introduce you guys to this young man, Kent. I'm gonna have a few questions for him. Again, we're going to go back and forth, and hope you all get something out of this. So, hey, Kent, how you doing, man?
Hey, how you doing? Hi, everybody.
All right, so good. When you were in high school, let's say a high school senior, what led you to LA Trade Tech College?
So high school, okay. So, I mean, high school was pretty interesting. My high school was very pro, going to college, all my friends going to college, what college have you applied to, and this and that. But I mean, to me, it wasn't that school was hard for me. It just, it was boring. It was like I had good grades. I was an athlete and everything, so I had to keep my grades up, but it just never excited me. So I also, my senior year, I was taking a wood shop class, and my wood shop teacher was the one that did lead me towards a trade, because he was very like, you know, not everybody needs to go to college. You know, there's other things that people can do that will fulfill, you know, what they're looking for. And as my senior year went on, he brought in like guest speakers from the union, from local 47, from, you know, so he brought in different speakers. So that's what also led me towards a trade. So once I decided to pick a trade, I kind of you know, looked for a school, and I found I like trade tech.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Moving it on. What was your experience there? And then talk about the certificates you earned.
Yeah. So pretty much at trade tech, I went in trying to be a electrician at first, and when I started speaking to you, and we started and got me towards the lineman program. Once I started the lineman program, you know, it was just, once I completed that, you mentioned to me, you know, I'm a young guy. What I lack in experience, I have to make up in other areas, like knowing the knowledge, all the certificates I got. So pretty much after the lineman program, you set up I remember you telling me, so this is the next cert you need to take. And I would come back next semester and say, okay, I got the cert, what's next? And you would give me, okay, you gotta go, this branches off to this, and there's your next cert. And I'll be like, okay, and I'll come back and say, what's the next one? At the end of it, I mean, I ended up with about 4 or 5 certifications, my AS degree, my Class A, and that was all within. So, I mean, yeah, I was racking on classes. I think at one point I was taking like 16 or 19 units, something crazy. But
wow.
Yeah,
So,
it was definitely a lot.
right. Hey, Ken, you're going in and out. If you can move set yourself in a different situation, your internet is moving a little slow. But basically what he said, he earned 4 or 5 certificates and certifications and got a Class A license all in a year and a half. And he also got a degree, right? So we talked about him being so young, and by the time he would go out into the lineman notion, he would be a young guy there. Okay. So what happened after you graduated?
Am I good here?
That's better. What happened after you graduated, Ken?
Okay. I got everything. I was given the opportunity to work for the city of Glendale. And, you know, from there, I kind of took my experience and everything that I learned at Trade Tech, and I applied it there. Obviously, it was a different world, so I had to learn more things, and it was a never-ending learning process. But what I did learn at the trade school at Trade Tech was very applicable to my career. I mean, yeah, unfortunately, you know, things didn't work out. I was discriminated against. You know, I was young, and I mean, I still am, but from now on, you know, everything's a learning process. So moving forward, I mean, everything that I have, my certs and all that, is, I know as soon as I apply anywhere, anybody will pick me up, because I'm still young. I still have all the qualifications and more.
Outstanding.
Yeah.
All right. So in the last question here, what is your future plan? You were sharing once upon a time.
Well, eventually I will get into real estate. I know the big reason why I did the power line mechanic program was because I wanted big money fast, and I knew that was one of the ways, and I wasn't scared of the work.
So I decided to pursue that. And once I get the ball rolling on that, it's, you know, even though when I started, I was getting, you know, paid low. I think it was around, it was the lowest, so around $20 an hour. Usually you start off at 34, and I was at that at one point, but that's the big money I'm talking about. You know, I wanted to get that money to continue and do real estate, and I had other bigger plans as well.
Okay. Hey, Ken, let me interrupt you. And listen, you're going in and out. I'm going to just kind of summarize this in 15 seconds. Kent was the perfect example of a student who had intelligence. He just didn't have a direction. And once he got a direction, he took off and there's no stopping him. And this kid is just 22 years old. Hey, Kent, thank you very much for your time. I really do appreciate it. We do have to move on. Thank you. Appreciate it. And call me anytime. The last thing is he's going to become a teacher. He's going to become a teacher at LA Trade Tech. We're looking forward to that for sure. All right. He'll be there.
Congratulations.
No times. All right.
Thank
you very much, bro. I appreciate it.
Thank you, everybody, for having me.
All right. Take care, brother. All right. So next slide, please. So now is the time for you all to ask any one of our panelists a question. Anything that comes to mind, anything that's in the chat right now, Heather, that may bubble up?
Yeah, a couple of times there's been questions about women. What about counseling women in the trades or in non-traditional, fields? And Camille was really gracious and put in a couple of resources in the chat, but I'm wondering if any of our panelists have anything else to say about that. Also, maybe men in non-traditional fields as well.
Good question.
I can start if that's okay.
Yeah, please.
One of the things that we've had a big focus on is in bringing in women to non-traditional fields. We've been, going to the high schools when we try to recruit. We've even had female technicians from LA Metro come up and speak at these events, so they can talk about their experience and how they're, working in bus repair and even in heavy equipment rail repair. So we've also established relationships with organizations like Winter and a couple others, working with some of our workforce centers. So that's been a really great thing for us, because it's fed a lot of women to programs that traditionally are not sought after by women, by female students. And there's certain industries where they really are looking for females. Again, it's interesting because I mentioned collision repair earlier. In collision repair, specifically for quality control and quality assurance, we have a lot of these advisories that have told us that they prefer to have women because, they tend to naturally have just a greater sense of color differentiation. And sometimes men, if you paint a car black and you put an off-tone black on the other panel, we might not be able to, pay attention to detail. So, there's so many opportunities for them. So we have really focused on trying to increase the number of women in our programs.
Thank you, Jess. I appreciate it. Either one of the counselors, David or Camille?
Well, I would say that just, and you may not have control of this, but it's important to have that kind of diversity within your faculty as well. I know at Compton College, we have African-American welding instructor, Pamela Richardson, the great Pamela Richardson. And that is helpful, when you're bringing students in, and not only are they seeing like through your advisories or through your field trips or industry professionals coming in, but when you have faculty embedded into your campus in those areas. And I know that might not be here right now, but if you have any influence on that, that's something that should be, discussed, I think, across the board at campuses. So I think it's easy to say, okay, we need to do more of this for these students, but what are we doing institutionally to make those representations? And there's a great need, I think, for women, not just in the technical fields, but in STEM and across the board.
Thank you, David. Camille, I'm going to ask you the opposite question. What about men in non-traditional CE roles.
Hold on. Can you hear me?
I had a little bit with the women also.
Hold on,
But I will talk about that a little bit too. I was looking at our CTE demographics and kind of
Yeah, I don't know how I
things.
pause
Most
my
industrial.
Hold on, just 1 second,
majors.
Camille. Camille, 1 second. There's somebody on the line that has come unmuted. Would you please check to see if you're muted? Thank you. Go ahead, Camille. I apologize.
No worries. With women in the trades, I mean, even in our industrial majors, it's about 90% male and we have about 10% female. So there's a definite huge disparity, and where we're looking at jobs in STEM and also industrial trades, and we're lacking folks applying. Part of that base of applying is women, you know. What I want to say, oh, so the other thing I want to say there too is interesting. Industry says a lot of welding industry partners, they say that women are really good with welding, and it's the attention to detail. And so just knowing that that there are industrial trades where there tends, like, industry sees that women have a different approach to it, and they contribute in a way that is a great way. So that's one thing. And then the other thing is that industrial trades that are heavily male dominated, those industry partners want to have more women, because when you have more of a balance within the workplace, everybody does better. And that's research across the board, even across ethnicities. When you have a more diverse workforce, the job is done well and better because there's different perspectives brought to the table. So knowing those two pieces, that women's skill sets, they're needed in these industries, and then also the addition of women into the workplace that is primarily men, it makes the work done better. Like, those two things I think is important to tell folks. And then we also do a yearly event called Energize Your Destiny, and it's focused on getting women into industrial trades. So we have women come from the Shell refinery and talk about their experience, and it's all women in the audience. It's an amazing experience to be in that space, but I've had a lot of students come in interested because of that particular event. So I would say partnering with CBOs or industry partners, they have money to fund those kind of things. And so leveraging those relationships to look at creative ways to outreach, I think, is important. For men in female dominated settings, so child development is one, and nursing is huge for us. I don't know. You kind of caught me off guard, Derek. I'm gonna lean on my coworkers here. Go ahead, David, take it.
I would say also from a counseling perspective, look, don't make assumptions about the students who come across your office. If you have a first generation Latina, Latino, whatever demographic they are, don't just assume that they want to transfer. Like, you got to stop yourself from doing that. Don't be afraid to introduce a welding program to a female student of any color, right? And be comfortable in the fact that you can explain what these classes mean, that you can go through and show them salaries. Odds are they come from a family of welders or mechanics or field workers, if you're dealing with students of color. So they might be more familiar with some of these things than even you are, and that's okay. But what we have to be careful with as practitioners, as counselors, is really checking our own biases, right? Because a female is, she looks a certain way or dresses a certain way, or even tells you the fact that my goal is to go to UCLA, right? Don't assume that is what it is, and you just spend your next hour, half an hour with the student talking about that. You really have to, again, going back to relationships, ask the right questions, right? Ask the right questions. Find out, is that what they really want to do? Or are there other avenues and pathways that might make a better, a stronger, and more importantly, an immediate impact on their ability to succeed in school? So part of it, I think, is, it is like we need more women in these industries at all levels, from faculty in the industry itself, but we also have a lot of power, and we can make that influence by, again, not making our assumptions, not checking our biases, and really being comfortable in talking about these programs to all of our students. If you go back historically, school counseling was a product of the 1940s and 50s for us to move students into STEM from elementary to high school. And so we were essentially influencers back then. In 1969, we went to the moon, right? So we have to be comfortable in having these conversations. You have to be really familiar what's in your catalog, what's in those classrooms, and be able to influence and motivate students into these programs. Because I mean, I'm telling you, these programs are amazing. And you know what, if they don't go here, they're going to go to those trade tech schools because they're really good about having those conversations. So I just want to say that, you know, check your biases, check your assumptions, and really, you know, be a practitioner of all the programs on your campus. It's important.
All right. Thank you very kindly. All right. So do we have one more yes or no question, Heather?
Yes or no question. No, the answer is no. We don't have a yes or no question.
Oh, man.
I know. Do you want maybe a quicker question?
How about a quicker question than the last minute I have here?
What can career centers do to better engage students for those campuses that have good career centers?
Wow, that's a hard, complex question. Jess, why don't you attack that one, bud? Come off mute. Come off mute. There you go.
You know, I think that what the career centers can do is the same thing that we're talking about, you know, the counselors doing, right? So the counselors do a great job. They guide our students, they build these educational plans, and how they're able to do a great job is by having, again, a relationship with these programs or to understand them a little bit better. I think that the career centers can do the same. Oftentimes, you know, at our college, you know, frankly, how many of these job offers are filtering through faculty and the relationships that they have with, you know, their industry partners, right? And a few that trickle down to the career center, you know, they sometimes fall through the cracks. I think if we're able to bring, you know, the counseling piece, the instructional faculty, bring the career center, bring all of those key components together and have a good working, you know, synergy, I think that we can help place our students in a much more efficient manner.
Thank you very much, Jess. That was a good, succinct answer. All right, next slide, please. Thank you very much. All right, so here's the chance for every single one of us to get on Menti.com and then enter in that code 2553001. You could do it from your smartphone, right? Click on the chat, and there's 3 questions there on there. Give you a second to get on, and there's 3 questions. The first question will be, what are some of the key takeaways from today's session?
Sorry,
Please
Greg, I was at the end. The first one is this one. Sorry.
Oh, it's okay. It's all right. It's all good. Please describe today's session in 1 word. And so again, that's Menti.com. Oh, educational. All right. Invigorating. Outstanding. All right. Informative. All right. Motivating. Appreciate that. Inspiring. All right. Educational. Encouraging. Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Resourceful. Empowering. Outstanding. Enlightening. Encouraging. Inspiring. Educational. Outstanding. All right. Informative. Let's move to the second question. All right. What has resonated with you during this discussion? Again, what has resonated with you during this discussion? Nothing has popped up yet. Christina, is there a reason why we're not getting anything popping up?
It might be that people are just taking a couple moments to fill it out.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's a little bit more of a, okay. All right, there's some. All right. Okay, very good. You all can see that listening to practitioners is a good one. It's a humbling experience to be wrong. Don't be afraid to be wrong, but don't be afraid to tell students, hey, listen, I don't know, but I'm going to go find out, or let's go find out together. The need to be intentional. Oh, that's awesome. Camille, you have some love there. The importance of representation, discover and reform to enlighten students. All right, that's good. Outstanding. Outstanding. Okay, it doesn't have to be either or. That's for sure. Absolutely. Be mindful of your biases regarding the type of career students should choose. Amen to that. Learning is a lifelong process. Outstanding. Outstanding. These are some really good ones. Okay. Collaborate with counselors to inform them about CTE and invite counselors to attend advisory meetings. Absolutely. Outstanding. And then we have a third question. What are some of the key takeaways from today's session? More learning is needed. Oh, outstanding. That's humble. Any other ones? I know this takes a little while to come on. All right. Reach out to the trade partners in your area for guidance and their expertise. That's so true. That's true. It's huge to be have great relationships between the counseling faculty and teaching faculty. The importance of getting to know the CE faculty, that's outstanding. That is super outstanding. Always bring up the trades as an option for students' goals. Outstanding. Very good. All right, as those more pop on there. This is my time, folks. Thank you for listening to us on behalf of the panel, Jess, Camille, and David, and Kent, who I'm so proud of. And I like to say that I was a part of his life. Oh man, I'm super geeked for him. And I'm glad that he wants to be a teacher. So I'm looking forward to helping him with that process. All right, thank you all very much. And I'm going to kick it right back over to Luis, who's going to close us down. Thank you, Luis.
Thanks, Derek. That was wonderful. So great to especially see the student with us. I hope everyone had a chance to hear a little bit about him, even though we had a little bit of a challenge, but I think most of us heard what he was doing and where he's going. So congratulations on that. We wanted to share with you a little bit about what's coming. And first of all, invite everyone that wants to, that has not joined the community of practice called the California Counseling Network, or CACN for short, that you'll see in the link, I hope in the chat, or you'll get a link right after this session today, how to join. So thank you for joining us today. I did want to make one quick reference, and I'm going to put it in the chat because I failed to mention at the beginning. Career Ladders Project had a statewide GP workshop just today, just before this session, focused on GP with career in mind. And there was a couple of folks on there that I wanted to reference, and we will be putting the link to the recording as well as the materials. Dr. Rios Aguilar from UCLA is doing some phenomenal research and partnering with several community colleges in the Southern California area. And one college that I'll be working with her in the future. We'll mention more about that when that comes along, but her research is really looking at this equitable practices in terms of career development, career support for students. And I've encouraged her to really look deeper into the role of counseling and elevating that role even more so. So more to come on that. I just wanted to mention that because I failed to mention that earlier. Next slide, please. These are a couple of things that we want to give you a heads up about. You can find in the chat the link to a resource. We're calling it a toolkit, but it really is just a list of resources, some short videos, some more lengthy reports. Again, as many of you were saying, you want to level up your knowledge around this work. This is the way to do it. Join this partnership, this network. Reach out to folks that you heard today. We reach out to us if you're interested in having more conversation. We look forward to that. And we also wanted to mention an upcoming webinar series that we're partnering, Career Ladders partnering with Miracosta College and Wendy Stewart. She was on our last roundtable session, and we shared this out then. We're sharing it again. This will be for next year after the holidays, Equity Grounded Counseling serving Black students. And so some wonderful work that's being brewed up and stirred, as Derek likes to say, for all of us next year. So we look forward to your participating in that. We'll give more details as we get ready for that series. Next slide, please. Again, this is a webinar series list. If you haven't already seen the calendar, you'll get it, I'm sure, as connected to this follow-up from this session today. Next month, on December 4th, we will be having another session, roundtable, focused on teaching counseling courses, engaging your students in a virtual reality. So this will be the next session. We hope that you will continue joining us and adding to this network of knowledge and practice that we're trying to elevate and support with all of your participation with us. Next slide, please. That's our slides for today. Thank you so much. We wanted to be sure to honor your time and be wrapped up by the 1:30, which I think we have done it. Thank you to the participants, to especially Derek and the spoon, I love it. And also all the participants that shared in our panel discussion. Thank you to all of you. We look forward to keep this learning going. Even though we're in this COVID environment, it's important to be connected, and I can think of no other way than to bring all of us together to listen and learn together. Thank you so much on behalf of the Career Ladders Project, the Counseling Network, the California Counseling Network, and I look forward to our next time. Be safe, everyone. Wear a mask. Take care. Bye.
Bye, you all. Bye. Stir it up.
Stir it up.